So you'll notice in your book that under this topic, my name is listed with two other names. Chelsea and Lindsey are my sisters-in-law, and they, usually we're singing together on Sunday morning and leading worship together. And they actually have way more formal vocal training than I do. And so I didn't want to do this without them, but they both were already planning on being out of town this week. So what I did is record some videos. So rather than me talking a bunch live right here, we're going to watch some videos that we did ahead of time to give you some of our thoughts. The first one is on dynamics. And just like, basically the gist of this is just like instruments get louder and softer and do different things and make the music sound different, so do we. So that's what this first one's about. And I'll go ahead and tell you now that I started playing the guitar and I played some wrong chords and I messed Lindsey up. She would want me to say that, but here we go. All right, so our last couple topics here are blending and diction. So when I say blending and diction, what do you think?
Always following the lead singer, whether that be with the tone of which they're singing. If they're singing really soft, you need to bring it back down. If they're bringing it up, you need to follow them no matter what they're doing because they're the one leading the song, and following their vowel shapes. It makes such a difference. It takes an extra bit of practice, but like really making sure that if he's singing an E, I'm not singing an eh, because then it's, even though we're not singing wrong, us trying to match those two vowels is going to make one of us sound flat because we're not locked in. And you'll know as soon as you get vowels right, it's just like a perfect like linking of chains and it sounds really good together. So I think just really making sure that whoever's leading, if there's any question, just make sure that you guys are matching vowels. And a couple of words that are sometimes that we've noticed with the three of us trying to sing that are a little hard to match are God, because some people say God,
or good.
Good. Yeah, it's just because in certain songs, and she can attest to this, if you're singing a higher harmony, sometimes you have to phrase it just a little bit different to get to that point, but make sure you match them on stuff like God, you,
which can be yo or you
or yeah.
Yeah.
Amen versus amen versus amen.
Some people say amen. O's and woes, those are always so hard, and make sure you always define if you're going whoa or oh, because that W really makes a difference.
Back to that onset we were talking about.
Yes.
And cutting off. If the lead singer is cutting off and you feel it them cut, you need to cut off with them.
Yeah. Don't keep going.
Yes.
So a few examples we thought of were Only King Forever, because you are the only king forever or forever. Mm-hmm. Almighty God, we lift you higher or higher. Yeah. So you have to watch those things. Or King of My Heart is you are good, but some people might say you are good.
Yeah.
Good.
Or even not adding the D, which is like the diction. You
good.
Are good. Good. And to be you are good. You're good. That.
Yeah. And then the one we're gonna play right now, Manifesto. We'll see if you notice it. We'll just play it and see if you notice what's wrong about it. 1, 2. Amen. 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 A little hard to get through that. Woo! Alright, so what was wrong with that?
Everything. My harmony parts, melody line.
So. The big thing was I was saying amen, and you were saying amen.
Yes.
And you were holding it out for like 2 seconds too long.
And coming in a little late.
And the crazy things that I noticed as we were doing that is that we were technically both on pitch, but because I was singing men and she was singing men, it sounded like we were hitting slightly dissonant notes there. Like they weren't right together.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a little nasty.
Remind me not to do that again.
different song next time. Sorry.
Yeah. So what else do you think of with this?
Blending.
Yes.
Definitely singing forward versus singing backwards. Anyway,
Back in your throat.
Back in the back of your throat.
Yeah.
And it's doesn't seem like a big thing, but especially if you're having like I know at Powhatan they have a lot of singers on stage. Some are singing in unison together. You have some on parts, or some people only have like 3-part harmony. So if some people are singing really forward and very bright with their sounding, it's going to sound completely different from someone who's singing more back. And it's not necessarily a stylistic thing. I think it's where you're placing your pitch. So it's a weird thing. But once you learn kind of which style or which side of the spectrum you fall into, it's kind of easier to try to figure out how to navigate those waters. So to kind of do an example of that, we're going to sing Holy Spirit. And the first time that we sing it, I'm going to sing it a little bit more swallowing my vowels to sing in the back of the throat.
The back of the throat.
Yes. You're going to have to get me into it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord.
So I heard the bellowiness.
Yes.
Welcome here. Like it was just like this.
Yeah.
Felt like
And
you're
that's
garden. Yeah.
can really over time damage your vocal cords. So it's not a style preference. It actually is harming your vocal cords. And as for me, as the person harmonizing with you, as you could hear, it makes for a not blended sound for somebody who's coming to sing with you.
And like you were saying earlier, a lot of people I think would say that, oh, that's just my style, but it's not necessarily the healthiest style if you're going to call it that, because it's hard to blend with, it's hard to follow. And if you're singing a solo and you want to be all gospely or be like Cher, then it could work.
Yeah.
But
I think also too, a lot of people think, because I am an alto, I sing alto 2, tenor, baritone, any man key. And she has always been a soprano, so people are like, oh, well, you're an alto, so you must sing, back more. She's always just brighter because she sings higher, and that's not necessarily the case. Our choir teacher always made us do drills to make sure we're always pushing it forward, always being more bright and more towards the front, because it helps place pitch a lot easier, and it helps sound resonate up and out, versus you're trying to sing, if you're singing in the back of your throat, you're trying so hard to get it forward that you're really straining your vocal cords. So we're going to do it
the right way.
Yeah, the right way of me trying to
So-called.
push it more forward. Right way.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord.
That was easier to follow.
Yes, and I think it's the meaning of pushing it forward is really important with the vowels. Like, you are welcome here, instead of you are welcome here. That's the difference between swallowing and just pushing forward.
Cool. Anything else?
Not that I can think of at
If
the
you do
moment.
all those things, you will be a professional.
Profesh.
That was out of order. That was not the dynamics video. I just clicked in the order they were on here. So apparently, that was actually supposed to be last. But there you go. That one was blending and diction, if you didn't notice. Any questions or thoughts about blending and diction? What we said there? think a big thing I thought about after the fact of this is stylistic stuff. A lot of times we don't know how to put our finger on something, but it's because we have a style difference. We learn to sing in a different place, a different atmosphere. Like some people grew up singing more country music, and so there's a different timbre, a different sound of their voice and how they pronounce their vowels and stuff. And so I don't think there's necessarily a wrong way, but everyone's got to be on the same page. So you as a team have to figure out what that is, what your same page is.
Because I was trained classically, and you have that whole show choir vibe where you're supposed to focus on your diction, and then you come into this where it's more of a pop band type sound, and so I'm just agreeing that that's a really good resource, because I learned to not pronounce things. So yeah, the What a Beautiful Name was one that Beth sent a link. She has a really good one for that too.
Cool, yeah. And there's like we had somebody sing with us a few times a few years back, but they grew up in a church setting singing hymns very like classically is all the only way I can explain it. And it would never fit with what we were doing. And it's hard to explain that other than just you hear it and it doesn't fit. Cool. We're going to move on now to dynamics, which should have been first, but that's okay. Here we go. All right, so we're talking about this first topic, dynamics. What comes to mind when we're talking about dynamics in singing?
I think it's important when we're matching what the band is doing in the song. For example, in almost every bridge we do, you should always be quiet at the beginning but still powerful and build as the band is building to create together that moment.
So I think of like the bridge and What a Beautiful Name.
Mm-hmm.
If you get to that first one where it says death could not hold us, and you just plowed through it with your full-on voice, by the time you get to bridge 2 where it says you have no rival, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
But if you wait, if you just sing it a little softer and then you wait, that dynamic can change that.
Yeah.
So let's run through that really quick and just see what that looks like the right way. So the instrumental before that. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
Death could not hold you, the veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring at the praise of your glory, for you are raised to life again, and you have no rival, you have no equal, now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is.
Good example. So if you notice where when we got to You Have No Rival, Chelsea just like pumped it up. She wasn't already there, so it gave the song extra dynamic. The instruments are doing that, so it makes sense for the vocalist to follow that energy as well. The other example I think of that's a little bit different is the song Hosanna. I think it's Hillsong. The first chorus is very like head voice falsetto, and then you get to by the second and third time you do it, you're not falsetto anymore, you're full on. So you want to run through kind of the first chorus, the difference between that and the next one. 2, 3.
Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest.
And then you get to the next one, and by that point, you're 1, 2, 3.
Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest.
Helps to know your chords, but vocally, that's the idea. So that's two kind of different examples of what that would look like. One thing that we were talking about earlier is using your voice like an instrument. Kind of like I was saying before, instruments tend to, when you're building, you're building into that next chorus. You're like just jacked it up. So if you kept your voice at the same place, you're not following that the dynamics of the song.
And I think too, adding in the harmony parts when it gets big makes it feel bigger when you get there too, and letting the lead vocalist take those quiet moments and having the harmony comes in when they do creates that stronger dynamic throughout the song.
Yeah. Again, much like an instrument, I wouldn't sit here on acoustic the whole time and just do this, but every once in a while I might drop out and just let the piano carry it. So just letting the lead vocalist carry, and then putting in harmonies for emphasis.
And even switching your harmony parts. Like we do it in Lord, I Need You a lot, because there's a really low part and a middle part, and then the first chorus is kind of soft, then we get the second one, I'll switch, I'll take that medium part, she'll jump up to the high part, and then we usually go at the end and do kind of like an acapella, really low key, sing with everybody, and then we'll switch back to the lower ones. That really creates emphasis and a lot of change and arcing in a song, which really allows for a lot of really cool dynamics with that.
So if we play a little bit of Lord, I Need You to kind of show. So the first chorus, we kind of have some lower harmonies going, and then we'll play the second one. 1, 2, 3. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. And that's where it would go to the second verse. But then we get to, kind of like before the second and third chorus, we have it, you guys switch parts, so there's a bigger spectrum there. So 1, 2, 3. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So this is just another example of something small where you can put a little bit of extra time in, because that, you do have to put the time in to figure out, okay, who's doing what first, and everybody's doing that, figuring the parts out. But when you're going to switch, so it's actually learning two parts to one song. But if you can put the time in to do something like that, it can give you a little extra oomph at a point in the song.
Yeah, especially if you only maybe have one extra vocalist with you. It'd be cool to have them switch up. That way it's not the same part through the entire song. Because that can be a challenge too if you only have two singers. Or, that way it's just adding a nice change to the song.
Cool. That's dynamics. Questions about dynamics? Makes sense. Thank you. All right, the last one, and it's the shortest one. You're welcome. The last one is on vocal energy and phrasing. So here we go. All right, so now we're talking about vocal energy and phrasing. So what comes to mind? What's important about phrasing things right and about keeping good vocal energy?
I think vocal energy is really important, and especially because in worship music, specifically, there's a lot of arcing and there's a lot of reflective moments. So I think that if you're able to have the energy and to phrase your phrases properly, it really adds a really nice dynamic to that. And changing your inflection, which is kind of just arcing the words and changing the words a little bit to make them flow really nicely and just to add a little bit of oomph to your phrases. And one of the songs that comes to mind is Heaven, because we do that at Midlothian in the female key. And especially when you're doing male songs, a lot of time you're jumping octaves, so those lower octaves can be a little low and a little slow, and just kind of it stays here. So if you're able to do that, it really helps. So we're going to do it wrong the first way, so that you can see what it sounds like when you add all of that the next way. So the first round is going to be the wrong way. I feel the tides are changing. I feel the walls are falling down. I feel the darkness shaking. We're calling up salvation now.
I think you also demonstrated something that is important to talk about, which is the onset of the phrases can really change the energy of the song. That song can be very powerful, but when you're onsetting it very breathy, it adds a different energy to it. Mm-hmm. So if the song is an exciting moment, you need to kind of give it some more punch going in to the phrase, and not as a breathy tone. It just depends on the song. Mm-hmm. Can change the phrase,
And I think also, like, sometimes it might be like you're too breathy because you took too much for a small moment.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be the opposite, where you don't take enough for a big moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because then you're like, you just can't get it out.
Yeah. So breath placement's really important.
And I noticed you're in that version, you're cutting words off short, changing versus changing, things like that. So you're ready to do it the right way.
Yes, this is going to be the more correct way of doing this song. I feel the tides are changing. I feel the walls are falling down. I feel the darkness shaking. We're calling up salvation now.
Good.
Yes.
Much better. So the other thing, I think you mentioned this a little bit, but because it's so low, you have to do a little bit of extra work there to keep up. So the other piece, I think, where vocal energy, and I guess is really a phrasing thing too, comes into play is where especially the ends of a phrase, where you can throw your words away too soon. And I guess you could do the alternative, which is hold them too long, but I think probably more people would experience doing it too short. The example I think of is Reckless Love. So if we play a piece of that the wrong way, so to speak, we get this feeling. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. So the words are very short. You just let them go too soon.
I think that's a good example, because it's hard for the congregation to be able to sing along with you when you're cutting off the words that way, and for us to harmonize with you as the lead vocalist. I was just sitting here thinking, how am I going to harmonize with that? Because you're cutting it off, and throwing away beautiful moments. And I think it's hard as a band to follow that natural swell of the song when it's being broken up that way.
The other thing I think about too with that is you talked about the congregation being able to follow it. You know, a song like that, people are hearing that on the radio, and if you're singing it differently, if you're like ending your notes differently or cutting them off too short, people are going to have a hard time following you because they've heard the song a different way. Or even, let's say they went to a different campus of PCC
It's true.
and they sang it a different way, and then all of a sudden they're trying to keep up with you, and you're cutting the words off. So it's more than just the way it sounds. It's it's a part of leading well too.
I think something else too with really quickly with ending is making sure that you don't trail off your phrases, because then sometimes it can kind of unintentionally arc down a little bit. Instead of trying to end it really powerfully before starting the next point, it can kind of go down. So you're trying so hard to get back up, and then it's a constant cycle. So I think cutting off your phrases too early, but also not really just ending them strongly too, can also be a hindrance of vocal energy.
That affect your pitch.
Yes.
Good notes. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any final questions on those things? Cool deal.